Welcome back to Hardball. A headline on page 1 of today's Wall Street Journal says in a nutshell what may have led to the oil rig explosion down the Gulf. Quote, oil regulators ceded oversight to the drillers. Well, how did it come to pass? The answer may lie in the oil industry-friendly Bush and Cheney years. Michael Papantonio is a lawyer whose firm has fought a class action law in 3 states on behalf of shrimpers, fisheries, oystermen, and business owners. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is president of Waterkeeper Alliance and a professor at Pace University. Together, they host a syndicated radio show called Ring of Fire that airs Saturdays and Sundays. Gentlemen, I'm looking at this piece that talks about the fact, and Robert Kennedy first, it seems to me they're talking about here a culture of ethical failure by these regulators, supposedly at MMS, at the Interior Department, having sex, taking gifts from industry representatives. It sounds like they're literally in bed with those characters. Is that the problem here?
That was one of the major problems. The agency during the Bush administration, which is responsible for promulgating regulations and for exercising oversight of the industry, really became just a sock puppet for the oil industry. They almost completely ceased any kind of oversight, and they relied instead on what they called a voluntary regimen so that the industry would regulate itself. And one of the outcomes of that, we know, was that the Deepwater Horizon, the drill rig on which this tragedy occurred, was not equipped with a piece of equipment which was an acoustical dead man switch, which BP, which is required in Europe, it's required in Brazil and other nations, it's used almost universally by the oil industry all over the world. But BP was not required to use it. Although BP uses these on its own oil rigs in the North Sea, it was not required to use it in this country. And the reason for that was because this agency, the Minerals Management Agency, really had simply had a seamless relationship with big oil.
You know, Michael, it seems to me, following up on Bob's point there, it seems to me that there was a real sweetheart relationship there, gifts, sexual favors, all kinds of stuff between the so-called regulators. And you get the idea that Cheney and his company, his characters around him in the Energy Task Force with those secret meetings, basically sent them the cue. You guys just leave these guys alone. We'll make a lot of money off the oil industry. We'll have a nice relationship. Don't regulate them too hard. Is that what happened, Michael?
Yes, Chris, we're going to have we're going to have an answer to this. The history goes way back. Before Dick Cheney began using his limitless political influence around the house of Halliburton, you got to understand this. In 1992, they were almost an obscure company. All of a sudden, they get a $3 billion contract from Cheney. And then Cheney, they're pleased. Then Cheney becomes the CEO of that company. The next thing we know, Halliburton, KBR, they're doing everything besides what they are as a cement company. They're delivering mail to our troops. They're preparing, serving meals. They're doing laundry and dry cleaning. They're having phone service. This is a pattern we've seen with Cheney from the beginning. It's the same influence pattern that emerged after Dick's closed-door meetings with the energy industry, where he had every major driller in the world there, Chris. And what they said, I don't know today, but I got to tell you, Bobby and I are going to find out, because what happened after that is overnight Halliburton becomes the darling of the petroleum industry.
Yeah.
They're deregulated. The mineral management.
So you're basically you're saying that Dick Cheney, as Secretary of Defense, fed these guys a fat contract. They rewarded him by making him CEO when he left the government. Are you saying there's a connection?
I know there's a connection, Chris, and you know. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob, your thoughts, Bob. Bob Kennedy.
I'll just tell you what the chronology was on the acoustical switch, which is really emblematic of the entire relationship. In 2001, the Minerals Management Agency was in the process of a rulemaking that would have provided new safeguards for offshore drilling. The rulemaking, which we have copies of, says that an acoustical switch is a, quote, essential component for all offshore drill rigs. Dick Cheney then had he came in January of 2001. For the next 100 days, he met in secret with over 100 executives from the energy industry, from the carbon industry, from coal and oil. We sued him to try to get the minutes of those meetings, and Judge Scalia denied us at the end, wrote an opinion denied, saying that he had executive privilege and that he didn't have to share those. So, but immediately after those meetings, the Mineral Management Agency, which was now headed was staffed by Dick Cheney with his cronies from Wyoming, led by Johnny Burton, who was one of a bureaucrat from Wyoming, who was a crony of Dick Cheney, reversed the 2001 rulemaking, and in 2003 published a document saying we're not going to require this essential component. Now, this is a component that was designed to turn on the blowout prevention device if the men on the rig could not reach the button and try to throw the device and to manually activate that device. That's the place where the fire started, and we don't know now whether they tried to manually activate the device. But this switch was designed, if they were unable to activate it automatically. And that switch was never installed in the pipe, and it may or may not have resulted in the tragedy at the Deepwater Horizon. But in 2005, the energy bill was passed, which was a product of
Bobby, we have to go.
It was essentially a grab bag for the industry. The industry made a wish list, and that became our energy bill.
Okay.
And it got rid of all the safeguards.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for that. It looks like Cheney's involved deep in this. It looks like that secret meeting at the White House under the Cheney-Bush administration got a lot of bad stuff done. I'm watching you, Michael, to see if you take legal action. Michael Papantonio and Robert Kennedy up.